Yo, what's going on, guys? It's G Miners here, and today we are going over the recent changes to Cloudstrike. If you remember back to previous seasons, the DPS this thing dealt was actually really high, at least for a special weapon with nothing else to pair with it. But then we got some changes, and I believe somewhere down the line, the perk Stormbringer, which spawned in the lightning strikes, stopped when pairing it with Divinity. Naturally, with Div being a pretty hard meta for a while, this thing became kind of useless, but as of this season, Cloudstrike now works with Divinity again, and we got a brand new exotic catalyst. This catalyst provides us with triple tap, and since we do have 7 rounds in the base mag, this is going to allow us to proc a lightning storm 1 additional time per magazine. So in this video, I'm going to be comparing the DPS of the fully reworked Cloudstrike against Izanagi's Burden, Arbalest, and a Godroll Distant Tumulus. Hopping into this lost sector against a boss, you can see here that Cloudstrike as a 140 RPM sniper is going to hit super light at 15,178 damage per crit. With the exotic perk that comes into play for damage phases, landing 3 successive crits will then spawn in a lightning storm, which ends up striking twice. Doing that against this boss, the lightning strike hits white numbers for around 15k and 9k, and these will eventually sum up to 24,943 damage. So looking across one entire mag, that would be 10 shots after triple tap, meaning we proc the lightning storm 3 times, and that would end up being 226,000 total damage. This Tumulus is basically a legendary version of Cloudstrike, the god roll having Clown Cartridge and Firing Line. Firing Line is a 20% buff to weapon damage. Testing against the same boss, you can see here that we are hitting for 15,178, which is the exact same number as Cloudstrike, which makes perfect sense because both are 140s. And then if we did have teammates nearby, this would have hit for 18,124 damage per shot because of Firing Line. Arbalest, which is currently a go-to weapon for damage after you use something like a heavy, ended up hitting for 44,125 damage per crit. So this is a significantly higher value, but keep in mind that we do have charge time associated with this because it is a linear fusion rifle, so that's naturally going to slow things down here. Lastly, looking over at Izanagi's Burden, this thing is going to hit for 100,736 damage per shot. Now this is using Honed Edge times 4, which I believe with the Catalyst is similar to having around 5 shots worth of damage rather than the base 4. So if you guys don't have the Catalyst, this number will be slightly smaller. The important thing that comes into play here is going to be both the total damage that these weapons can deal, along with the rate at which they deal damage, aka their DPS. The only exception would be something like Izzy, which you can add swapping weapons to, so your DPS is going to eventually be increased, but I won't be adding swapping weapons in this video, just so that we can compare each weapon singularly. Starting out with Cloudstrike, I simulated the 10 shots in this footage, and also used a Lunar Rift to give myself max reload speed. Shooting just 3 mags, which came out to 30 total shots and would have been 9 lightning strikes, took 15.68 seconds. This would have been a total of 679,000 damage, which means our DPS comes to 43.4 thousand damage per second, which is actually super solid for a special weapon dealing this much damage in total. I did want to also mention that you could technically get the Lightning Storm to proc 1 additional time, depending on how fast you are reloading and firing, so you could increase damage ever so slightly, depending on the boss encounter that you're in. Distant Tumulus, on the other hand, has 21 shots in total, which we shot all of. With Clown Cartridge, I got decently lucky with 10 in the mag and then 9 in the second mag, but either way, we would have had to reload the exact same amount of times. This took 12.7 seconds for a total of 382,000 damage, which brings us to a DPS value of 30.1 thousand damage per second. Arbalest ended up taking a lot longer than most of the other options here to shoot off just 3 mags. In total, this was 18 shots and 794,000 total damage, which is pretty massive, but this took 19.96 seconds to get this damage off. So all in all, even though this is probably the best total damage output weapon as far as specials go in the game, and great for additional utility, our DPS was only 39.7 thousand damage per second, which is still less than Cloudstrike. Lastly, Izzy was actually surprisingly not that great on its own. Like I said, this does kind of make sense because it is the best to pair with another heavy weapon, but I still kind of expected it to be the best out of these 3. They shot 5 shots in total, which would have been 503,000 total damage, and we actually did this faster than Cloudstrike in just 14.76 seconds. But even with that time saved, we only reached a DPS value of 34.1 thousand damage per second, which is right in the middle of the two. Overall, I was kind of surprised by the results. I definitely expected Cloudstrike to still be ass, but it was kind of decent. I definitely wouldn't say this is going to be the go-to weapon for damage, but I think for a boss that might be further away, and when used as a supplementary option, it could be a really solid choice. I didn't compare it to Whisper or Darcy because those are both exotic heavy snipers, but if you guys did want a follow-up video comparing all of the best snipers in the game to see what is actually the best, let me know in the comments down below. Also, make sure to let me know your general thoughts on Cloudstrike and if you guys have gotten the catalyst to drop for yourself yet. I will also be streaming the new dungeon at Reset tomorrow. A link to my Twitch is in the description below, along with my Discord server. Anyways, that's all for this video, guys. As always, have a good one. Peace.